All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start the recording now and need to share my screen again. One moment. All right. Thank you for joining me today. Um, Today I'm going to be reviewing the general workflow of cataloging in Leap with the version 7.6 update. So today's session will introduce you to the cataloging tasks in Leap that will be necessary for your daily tasks, as well as introduce you to some of the new functions available with version 7.6 that weren't previously available. There have been a significant amount of changes to the Mark editor that I hope you'll be happy with. So as with my previous webinars on Leap's updates, I'll begin with an overview of what you can and cannot do in Leap at this time so that you can understand how the development is progressing. Then I'll demonstrate the functions in the cataloging workflow. The tasks I'll cover today include importing records, editing and creating bibliographic records, creating item templates, editing and creating items, printing labels, withdrawing items, and I'll also review some issues related to record sets and bulk changes. And I will allow you some time to practice editing with the new Mark editor during the webinar so that you can see if you have any questions about it while we're going through the different tasks. So I think it's a good idea to review what is and is not in Leap with each update so that you can see how much development work is left for Leap before it has everything you want and need in it for cataloging. At this point, you can use Express Import and Z3950 to import records from OCLC. However, you cannot create import profiles or use full import. So this means the amount of changes that you could do to an import profile in Leap are very limited. The Mark editor has been enhanced so that you don't need to press so many buttons and can edit the tag and the line. However, it still does not have a duplicate detection button, and you still need to open records in separate browser windows if you want to compare them. It has the ability to create item templates, but not bibliographic record templates yet. It is also still missing the ability to create multiple item records at the same time. And while you can print labels from Leap, it is still missing that ability to edit the label size and content settings and the ability to print spine labels from the record sets. Some other new features include the ability to execute the ad hoc bulk changes from the Find tool and bibliographic record, as well as add bibliographic records to a record set from a list of ISBNs. There are also some new search settings that I shared with in the webinar on searching in Leap. Are there any questions about the current state of Leap yet? Feel free to type it in the chat or unmute yourself. All right, I need to switch the screen that I'm sharing. One moment while I do so. All right, so while I'm logging in to Trading Leap, since I'm going to allow you some time to practice during the webinar, feel free to log in to Leap as well. See, I do see a question. Are dedupe buttons and the other functions going to be added in the near future? Yes. So I believe with the 7.7 update, they should be adding the um, duplicate detection button, as well as that ability to look at records side by side within Leap so that you don't have to open up separate browser windows. Michelle London asks if we're able to import authority records yet. Yes, you can import authority records into Leap using a profile that exists in Leap. All right, so here is Leap, and I'm going to log in with my username and password, and I'll be at Round Lakes branch today and press continue. All right, so I do want to share a few new options that have been added to the drop-down menus. So at the top of the screen, there's the new drop-down menu. This is where you'll access the options to create new records. It includes bibliographic records, record sets, and serial holdings records. But it has added the option to add item templates. So here you'll find the option to hover over template and then select item. Nothing new has been added to the utilities drop-down menu, but in the last update, they did change the word for cataloging processing to background processing. So that's where you'll find all of your bulk change reports. It does have item bulk change reports there now, as well as your import report. So here you can see we've got the MARC import report. There's also item, bibliographic bulk change, and patron bulk change. And one thing they've added are some additional shortcuts for the MARC editor. So you can find those by clicking on Help and then Keyboard. So here you can see there's two different columns for MARC editor shortcuts. I'll go through those a bit more later. And there is something that has been added to the settings. So you can find these settings under your username and then click on settings. So in the work form user defaults, one thing that has been added is over on the right hand side is the option to display hints or not in the MARC editor. So the default is to keep that checked, so you will see that. Another thing I'd like to point out while I'm here, in case you don't know yet, is there are work form defaults for the default view. So this will allow you to set the default view to open immediately to a specific tab. So if you always work with MARC records, you can set that default view to the MARC record tab. Instead of preview, the default that you'll see is that it's open to the preview button. You can also set your background processing to MARC import if that's what you use the most. And then you press save. All right, are there any questions about these new functions in the drop-down menu or the settings? All right, I'm going to move on to the next topic. So I'm going to start with the daily workflow by importing records. So I'm going to demonstrate both importing a MARC file and using Z3950. And so to import the MARC import file, you'll find it under Utilities, and it's all the way down at the bottom. It's labeled as MARC import. So, on the Mark Import Setup screen, you will see that the tabs at the top are like your Mark Import profile, and you can access them after you've selected your profile. So I'm going to scroll through this list to find a profile to use. I'll just use one of these templates to copy, and I'm going to demonstrate importing a file um, that I have that's just an example file. And if you do look through the different tabs, you can see that the amount of settings you'd be able to change here are very limited. So on the Bibliographic Records tab, you can only change the display and pack settings. If you do need to change these settings, you would have to use full import from the client. If you're one of the libraries that creates item records or updates item records when you import the file, you cannot change any of the settings, not even the item template on this item records tab. So if you do need to use that tab and need to change that template, in the item template field, you will want to use the client still for importing records. So we do have that authority records tab here. Again, you'd have to change that if you need to make any changes in the client. It's going to just use Express Import. But you can change the settings in the Record Sets tab. So if you want to change the name of your file or the name of the owner, you can still do that. So to select a file, just below the table of profiles, you'll find the button for selecting a file. One thing that is different between Leap and the client is that you can have a file anywhere on your computer, and you don't need to use that networked drive or a USB file anymore. It can be anywhere. So I can just scroll through and find what I want. I do have some files here on a USB drive that I'm going to choose from. So I'll just import one of these. So I selected a file from a USB drive. Did everyone see that, or was it just sharing the browser? All right. Okay, great. I'm going to press continue. You can select as many files as you want to import at one time. If you choose too many and want to delete one from the list, you can press the delete icon on the left-hand side. And then you need to press select file. Oops, not select file, sorry. You need to press import at the top on the right-hand side to import the file. So it's processing my file now. And you'll see the toast that the job was submitted. So to access the report, you will click on Utilities and then Background Processing. This will be under Mark Import. It's already completed my import. If you saw it pending, you can then press refresh to refresh the import until it has a status of completed. And when you open it up, you'll see that the import report is still the same as it was with the client. It does take some time to open. Okay, while it is still loading, are there any questions about importing records that you have? All right, it is still loading, so I'm going to uh, close that for a second. Nancy is asking, does CCS clean up the list for us? Do you mean the list of reports in the Mark Import report? We do not delete any of the Mark Import reports. They do keep a limited amount on the server. I haven't scrolled down to see the whole list, but I think it's just a couple of months, so they do eventually delete them automatically. All right, so this is the oh yes, Nancy commented she's seen it until May. Yes, I think that sounds about right. That's about the amount of time that is retained. So this is the import report. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you'd be able to see that the record sets so that you can identify which records you've imported and if there were any error messages. So I can see this saved it as a provisional. And if I scroll up, I can see that this is one of the more common error messages. There were 2 duplicate records detected. So this is really common, especially for on-order records. If the on-order records haven't been deduplicated properly, Polaris doesn't know which order record to overlay it to deduplicate it. So it will save another record as provisional. Oh, and where is this? She can't see the report. 1 second. I'll have to change the screen I'm sharing. Okay, you should now be able to see it. So here I can see that this section right here has the error messages. And when I imported it, it found 2 duplicate records already. So this is really common. And you can see that it's got the record numbers for the duplicate records. So Polaris chose to save it as a provisional, and this is added to that provisional record set. So after you have processed all of your files, please do delete your record sets. You can refer to the import report to find the name of the record set. If you do just search for the beginning of the name, you will be able to see those. It helps Simply Reports to run faster if you do delete those record sets. Are there any questions about Mark Import? All right, great. Now I'm going to demonstrate importing a record through Z3950. So I'm going to close this and open the Find tool by pressing Find at the top of the screen. So to import the record from Z3950, you'll need to use the Bibliographic Record Remote Databases option in the Database drop-down menu. And to select your database, you will see an icon here that looks like a cylinder. And so you'll select that and can then select the OCLC WorldCat option. You can also search in the local database at the same time and then press Apply. Okay, so I'm going to search for marsupial frogs. And you can see that over here in this database column on the left side, it's been labeled as something from a local database and from OCLC, so you can see which records are from which database. On previous versions, there was just a number in the format column. So now you can see that this is easier to tell which format it is. And I'm going to purposely select a duplicate. So I'll select this one called A Whiff of Pine, A Hint of Skunk. It's not about frogs, but that's okay. So when you open it up, you can see that this is a new bibliographic record at the top and can press save. So I'll demonstrate editing a bit later. So you will see the Check Headings Assistant screen pop up, and I'm going to press continue to bypass that. If there was something wrong with the record, the mark validation screen would appear. And you can see now that the bibliographic record duplicate detection results appears. If you want to check the record to see if it's a true duplicate, you can open that. I'll demonstrate deduplicating and comparing records more in depth soon. If there was more than one duplicate, the records to replace will have more than one there, and you can choose a control number to maintain in this drop-down menu. If you press Add Titles, you can search for control numbers. If you think there's a provisional that's a duplicate, you can identify that from your import report. Although at this time, we're just importing from Z3950, so you wouldn't have that import report. And I'm going to press Replace, and that will just replace the duplicate. So while you are working in training, you will find that it's a bit slower than production. We are aware of this. This is because training isn't allocated as much space on the server as production is. So it has now overlaid the record. Are there any questions about importing from Z3950? Nancy asks if the diacritics issue is solved for Z3950 on the new version. No, it hasn't been solved yet. It still only uses Mark 8 for encoding. So it is much easier to import the records from a file from Connection because you can change those settings to export the files as UTF-8 in Connection. All right, I need to switch to my PowerPoint for a second. One moment while I switch screens. All right, so on the screen, I have some information about the shortcuts in Leap. It uses the same shortcut as the client to add the delimiter, Control Q. Diacritics are a bit of a problem still in Leap. It's easier to type them from an online keyboard and then copy them and paste them into Leap, or you can also use Word. I did try using alt codes, but that was not working with this version of Leap yet. So you may want to check to see if the record in Connection has the correct diacritics and not Latin characters to import it from a file in Connection. If you see that the record should have diacritics. As I did pointed out, there are some additional shortcut keys or shortcuts for the keyboard that's under Help and Keyboard at the top of the screen. So you'll see there's two columns for Mark Editor. One is Control Plus and one is Shift Plus. So you can see that this added a number of new shortcuts that could potentially be useful for you if you don't like using the mouse. So you can move the focus up and down by pressing Control and the up arrow or down arrow. You can press Control H to display the hints. However, it is very sensitive on the Mark Editor page to where your cursor is. So you can see at the bottom of the Control Plus column that it says Save Changes and Close. So that would be Control S. This is not for the full record, unfortunately. This is only for a fixed field, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. So if you press Control S and you're anywhere, if your cursor is anywhere but a fixed field, you'll see the File Explorer pop up to save a web page on your computer. And for the Shift column, you can see that you can move a tag up and down by pressing the Shift and up or down arrows. But this does have the ability to insert or delete a tag by pressing Control I or Control D. Are there any questions about the shortcuts? All right, I'm going to search 1 second. Nancy commented that the Q has to be lowercase. It can't be on caps lock. Do you mean when you press Control Q for adding the delimiter? Yes. So when you're adding the delimiter, you do want to make sure your caps lock is not on for pressing Control Q. Thanks for the comment, Nancy. All right, I'm going to search for an example I made so that there's an intentional duplicate, and I can demonstrate deduplicating a bit more in depth. So I've made a copy of Sufficiently Advanced Magic, and I will open up the record with items. Okay, so one thing that was pointed out to me the other day is that you may want to pay attention to the size of the browser. So you can actually see that if I press Control Plus and Control Minus, if I go a bit larger, the icons on the sides, the right and left sides, do disappear. So you'll want to check the size by pressing Control Minus if you do not see any icons on the side. So you're supposed to see the up and down arrows on the left-hand side, an I for the hints, and the plus and minus arrows on the right-hand side. So here on this Mark tab, you can see that those buttons at the top for editing and adding tags are now completely gone. And so in order to edit the fixed field, you can open it by pressing this arrow that points to the right-hand side. So I'll open the 008 field, and you'd be able to do this to access the drop-down menus to make a change. So I'll just demonstrate that with the leader instead, because I can change this I to full just to make a change. This allows me to press the OK button. So pressing OK will close it after I make a change. You can also press this upward facing arrow to close it, but this is where you can press Control S. Pressing Control S, as I did just now, will save that change I made to the leader and close it. But it does not save the record. So if I click away from that and make sure I haven't clicked it and press Control S again, you can see that it opens up the File Explorer to save that whole page. So it is very sensitive to where your cursor is. So one of the things about the Mark Editor for copying and pasting, you have to copy and paste one tag at a time. It doesn't allow you to highlight multiple tags like you would be in the client to copy and paste. So each little section here, like each tag where the indicators are, these are separate text boxes. And the subfield is a separate location where this text box is. So you'd only be able to highlight one text field at a time to copy and paste it. And for purposes of saving this, so you see what happens when there's an error for mark validation, I'll add something wrong to this tag by typing in a subfield X so that you can see that error message pop up when I go around to saving it. So again, you just press Control Q to add the delimiter. If you want to add or remove tags, you can do so by pressing the plus or minus symbols on the right-hand side. I'm going to press plus so you can see that the tag appears with the subfield A. And you can type in the number and add the delimiters. If you want to see the hints, you can press the icon. So this will show you the meaning of all of the subfields and the indicators. You can press close to close that. If you want to delete that tag, you can press the minus symbol. If you are interested in moving the tags around up and down, you can move them with these up and down arrows. You can also use those shortcut keys to move them by pressing the shift and the up arrow or down arrow. And then pressing Control moves the focus of the of where the cursor is. So I'm going to scroll down here and you can see that there's some tags I could delete, and I'll just press the minus symbol to delete that one, 945 field, because we don't need that in there. And one thing about saving records is if your cursor is still in a field, it doesn't necessarily always let you save it right away. So it is today, but you have to sometimes click away from the record in order to press that save button. So are there any questions about the Mark Editor capabilities? All right, so I'm going to press save. And you will see the check headings assistant come up. And here is the intentional error. You can see that there's a mark validation error that comes up. So I'm going to press cancel. And at the top, you will see this big red box showing you what the error is. And you can find it and delete that. So I'll delete that. And then press save again. And now it should go directly to the bibliographic record duplicate detection results. So if there was more than one duplicate, you'd be able to see that in the records to replace. And like the client, the record to retain is going to be the one that is at the top. So if you want to keep a different one, you'd have to open up that record. So I'm going to now demonstrate comparing records. There's two options that you have right now until the next update for comparing records. So I'm going to click on that second record to open it. And one way to toggle between two records is by using the Workform Tracker. You can find this on the left-hand side. At the top, it's these three lines. I'm going to press Pin to pin this open. So you can see here I can toggle between the two records. And I'm going to press Cancel here. And you'd be able to compare them and copy and paste information from one to another, see if it's a true duplicate. and so forth. So I'm going to now show you the other option, and that's to use two browser windows. So you can do this by copying the URL of one of your records, opening up another browser window, pressing paste. So this will open it in the new tab. And I'm going to then right click on it and move tab to a new window. So to compare the two records side by side, at the top you can click on this little square icon and place them side by side. So right now I can see that I've got the same record open in both of them, but can use the workform tracker to toggle to the other one. Okay, so here's both of them. And then you can scroll down, compare them side by side to see if there's one that's better or if you want to copy and paste information from one to another. So I'm going to close that because I don't need to keep that second one open. And I do have to close this second record that I have open to be able to deduplicate it. And I'll press save again. And bypass that check headings assistant by pressing continue. So to overlay the duplicate, you will need to check the box for the correct record to overlay and press replace. It will take some time and training. It's a bit slow, but it should be faster in production. So while we wait for it to deduplicate, are there any questions? All right. So I want to take some time for all of you to open up a record and try using this new version of Mark Editor. So if you're not logged into Leap, you can navigate to Leap. And if you have an idea of a record that you want to look at, this data is from May. So you would want to search for, say, something you've read recently or watched on TV or a movie that you watched recently and open the record. And I'll give you some time to practice using this new Mark Editor. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. So I'll give you about 5 minutes. And when you feel you're done testing it, feel free to let me know that you're done so that we can move on. I saw that some of you have already finished, so I've opened up a poll. And if you are finished, feel free to answer the question. What do you think about the changes to the Mark editor in Leap for version 7.6? But feel free to continue to take some time to play around with the Mark editor.
Rachel, this is Tammy.
Yes.
I have a very basic question that doesn't even relate to the upgrade. But when
Sure.
I do a search and I get my search results, the top item is always selected. And I can go
Yes.
down and select other items, but that top item doesn't unselect. Is there a setting I can use to, as soon as I click something else, the other option unclicks or?
Um, no, we don't have a setting for selecting items. Um, but I think when you select it, do you uncheck the checkbox?
From the first item, the original item that came automatically selected.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I forget and that's what messes me up. So I didn't know if there was some way to not have that selected in the first place or,
No, I think you just need to uncheck that checkbox.
okay. I just gotta keep remembering. Thanks.
Sure. All right. Does anyone need any more time? All right. So if you haven't answered the poll yet, it is still up. Um, I'm very curious about everyone's opinion. What do you think about the changes to the Mark editor in Leap for version 7.6? So I'm going to leave this poll up if you for another minute, if you need some more time to think about it. Still a few of you that haven't answered yet. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So it looks like 33% were satisfied with it, 53% neutral, and 13% dissatisfied. So that's very interesting to see. I know it's been very controversial, and we've had a lot of discussion. So we are interested in hearing if you have ideas for improving Leap. Please do let us know. We can definitely consider some new idea exchange submissions. So one thing that came up with training the new libraries was that they're interested in having that undo button added to Leap. So I still haven't added that idea exchange yet. So something like that, um, that's important to you, um, is important to us too. So please do let us know and we can work with you to craft the right text for submitting an idea to the idea exchange. So I do want to switch to my slides for a second. One moment, I accidentally closed PowerPoint. I have to reopen that. All right, so on this slide, I have some tips for deduplicating records in Leap. It does have some links for web pages that are useful to review if you have any questions on whether a record needs to be deduplicated or not. You can refer to when to use a new record, as well as multiple records versus single records for series and sets. And there's a page on merging duplicate records that provides tips on things like the fields that you should look for to see if they need to be copied from one record to another. It can also be challenging to merge those monographic records with the multi-volume record set when there are holds, because the holds don't get placed on the correct volume on the multi-volume record. So those holds do need to be moved manually and transferred to the other record or placed manually so that you can select the right volume. So you may want to go over the holds and hold applications online course that's linked to on the screen. And I know Warren Newport's catalogers have been cataloging in Leap since we've trained them in Leap. And one staff member had a really interesting suggestion because there's no duplicate detection button. They've been checking to see if the bibliographic records have holds on them. If there are no holds, they actually just change the control number of the bibliographic record in the item record to move the item records from one to the other. So they don't have to press save to deduplicate the record when no changes need to be made in a record. And then they delete the record they don't need. So that saves them some extra time from having to make a change like adding an extra period somewhere that's not necessary. And that duplicate detection button is coming soon. So it won't be necessary to have any workarounds or to press save when you don't need to in the future. So I'm going to switch back to the browser. One second. All right. So are there any questions about deduplicating? All right, great. So I know you don't have to create records from scratch very often, but there are some cases where you may want to do that. So I'm going to demonstrate creating a bibliographic record from scratch. And I'm going to use a kit as a kit template as an example because I know sometimes that could be the time when you would need to create bibliographic records from scratch because you may need to assemble multiple components of a kit that doesn't just have one purchase order linked to a bibliographic record yet. So to do so, you would click on the new button and then select bibliographic record. And you can scroll down to find a kit. So I can see everyone's templates here. So I'm just going to select an easy one at the top to find and press OK. So Once this is open, you can make changes. So I'm just going to make a change so that I can save this. And I had to click away from the text box I was editing so that it activated that save button. And I'll press save. So it's fairly easy. If you have multiple kits you're assembling at the same time that are similar, you can copy the existing record instead of using another template. So you can do so by pressing Actions and then Copy. And I'll just change that, make it another example, number 2, and press Save. So it's fairly easy to do. Okay. So the next thing is to add items. So since we're on items now, I'm just demonstrate briefly how to create an item template. So you can do so by opening the new drop-down menu, press template and then item. One thing about this is that what's different from the client compared to Leap is that in the client, the owning branch and assigned branch are selected automatically, but they're not in Leap. So you can see now that without those, there's nothing in collections. So it's sensitive to the order of things that you change in your item template. So since I have Round Lake branch that I'm logged into, I'll just select Round Lake here. And I'll change that to branch. And I have to find Round Lake again. Round Lake District. So now you can see that the collection has been populated. I'll just select Fiction. So I'll mark the display and pack checkboxes, change this to on order. I'll name it on order. Fiction example. And then update the book material type. I'll make that book new. Loan period. Fine code. Renewal limit. I'll mark that as do not float. And I'll select a home branch. So I'll add in a prefix on order. Okay, so down at the bottom, one thing I should point out, I know I've mentioned this at a CAM meeting before, is there's this option that's somewhat new for language. The options for language are very limited. They're synced to the options that are used for languages in the patron record and not the bibliographic record. This also doesn't have the option for bulk changing it, so I do not recommend using it at this time. I just want to point that out because it's not the most useful yet. And below that are the hold settings. So since this is an on order record, I'm not going to check loanable outside system. This is the setting we're using to select the titles for going to Find More Illinois. So you need to make sure that your templates are updated as you'd like, whether you'd want your on order records to have that set up or not, or your item bulk change template. So you may not want your on order records sent to Find More Illinois. So you can uncheck that box, but update your item bulk change templates for denewing to check it when you denew it. So I'm going to select Do Not Mail to Patron, holdable, and I'll use this option for patrons from this library and branches to allow them to hold it for the first 30 days, and this will automatically allow everyone else to place it on hold after the 30 days is up. And I'll press save. So there is my template. And then if you open up the Actions drop-down menu, you do have the option to copy the template. So if you are making similar templates as the one you already have, you'd be able to search for your item template in the Find tool and copy it and make a few changes too. So I'm going to press close now. And I'm back to the bibliographic record that was still open. Does anyone have any questions about what I've covered so far? All right. I'm going to now add some item records to this bibliographic record. So I know most of you will see the item records already there from the ordering process. But if you do need to add an item record, you'll have to click on a new item button. There's several places that that button will be. So you'll see it on the local items tab. You'll see it also on the all items tab. And under the actions drop-down menu, you can press create item. So the first thing you may want to do is select an item template. And let's see. There's a lot of item templates here on my list because I can see everyone's template. I know this is a kit, so I'll try to find a kit template. Let's see. There's a kit template. One thing that's different between Leap and the client is that when you select a template, you do not see a preview of what will appear in the call number area. You will see that it's selected the proper information for the drop-down menus for the assigned branch, collection, and so forth. So it is there in the background. You do not have to add it when you see missing information. Just press create item first. And you can see now in the call number field that it's added the prefix early learning. And it's changed that circulation status to on order. You can add in a barcode and then press save. So I'll change that now to in process and make that available. So since this kit will need a spine label, I'm going to generate a spine label. To do so, this is under the Actions drop-down menu, and I'll press Print Label. So to make another item for this item record, if you need to make two, you can copy the existing one. So unfortunately, you cannot make more than one item at the same time like you can in the client. And I'll press Save. Make that available. And then press Print Label under the Actions drop-down menu. So if I close this, I'm on the All Items tab and press Refresh, you can see my new items here that are available. Are there any questions? If I'm going too fast, please let me know. I can demonstrate something again. Sarah asks if it does it not auto-generate a label when you create a new item like it does in the client? It does for the serial labels, but it does not do it for the spine labels. There is a setting though, I know during Leap Month that someone did not want it to auto-generate for their serial labels because they don't need those. So if you experience it auto-generating and don't want it to, you can contact me at the help desk and I can change that setting for you. All right, so I'm going to navigate now to labels. So this is under Utilities and Label Manager. All right, so I have it under Spine Continuous Feed Rules. You can see that there's a bunch of labels that I've already queued up here. If for some reason you do want to change something on a label, you cannot change the font size or the font. But if you needed to move things to a different row, you'd be able to edit the content of the text by moving it to a different row. Press save after you move something to a different row. And then under actions, you'd be able to print the labels. So this opens as a PDF file, and then you'd be able to press print at the top of the screen. So I have had some reports of the label content not appearing properly in Leap. So even if you're not using Leap right now, I encourage you to check it out and test how your labels appear in Leap, so that you can make sure that they appear properly. So some libraries have had to make separate label settings for Leap than they do in the client. So please do let me know if you feel that the settings need to be changed for Leap for you, and I can work with Lauren at Innovative to make sure the settings are correct and it appears properly. So there are some basic settings for labels, but not the ones to edit the label content. Under settings. So this is under the first tab, print options at the bottom. And this is just what you have in that options section of the client. You can select your default label type, your default print method, and whether you want cataloging or serials options as the default. So if you do make the change here, it does change it in the client and vice versa. So if you do change it, make sure you check the client if you go back to the client. Are there any questions about labels and item records that I've demonstrated so far? All right. Oh, how do you choose font type for labels is a question that just came up. This is something that right now is only in the client. So this is under utilities and label manager. I will contact you to provide you with instructions for that after the training session, and I can send that information out to everyone too. All right. Let's see. So, one thing that's useful about the workform editor is that it does have some recently created records that are in the recent section. And I do have a lot showing here because I've added or I've changed the setting. It does allow you to choose how many work forms are appearing in the work form editor's recent records, not in the current records, but under settings and work form user defaults, the work form tracker recent records allows you to change it. So the default is 3, and I've increased it to 5 so that you can see that more are here. I'm going to open up one of these item records that I just created and demonstrate withdrawing items. So it's fairly easy to do an individual item by pressing withdrawn, save, and then you'll find delete under actions. This marks it for deletion, but doesn't completely delete it. We do still delete the items and completely purge them from the system once a month for that previous month. And you can also undelete items too. So this is the one that was deleted. It closed when it deleted it, but I did find it under the Recents tab of the work form tracker. So I'm going to press Actions and undelete it, and change it to Available now. And navigate to the bib record. So another option now for deleting records is the new ad hoc bulk change options. So this bulk change button you'll find on the local tabs and all items tabs. So this will open up that bulk change screen that you may already be familiar with. It's the same one for item bulk changes that you would access from a record set. So I'm going to demonstrate withdrawing something with the bulk change. So I've selected the records and clicked on bulk change. And we'll change the circulation status to withdrawn. And then next I'll press update items and press continue. So this could be useful if you're withdrawing a lot of books for that were used for a book discussion group, or if you're reading multiple copies. One thing that is not here though is a delete button on the screen yet. So it may still be quicker for you to both change and bulk delete things by using the record set, because you'd have to open up the record to access a delete button in order to mark these records for deletion. So you can see here that the record status oh, it didn't mark this one for withdrawn. Let me try that again. Maybe that was a different record. So I'll change that. Update the items. Oh, that one's already deleted. That's why it's not changing it. So I'll delete this one. So in order to withdraw it, I would have had to undelete that one first. But if everything is in an undeleted status or final record status, you'll be able to withdraw those items from bulk change. So you can also find that if you switch from bibliographic record to item record in the find tool, you'll see that bulk change button at the bottom. But again, there's no delete button here, so it may be better to add it to a record set first so that you can bulk delete items in that record set. Are there any questions about the new bulk change features? Does anyone want me to demonstrate anything again that I've demonstrated so far? All right, I do want to review some information about record sets. So I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint. So there's a lot of different ways to create record sets. And a new one has been added recently. All right, so you should be seeing my PowerPoint presentation now. And I just want to review all of the different ways that you can create record sets in Leap. Like the client, you do have the option in Leap to send all of your records from the search results to a record set. So you can see that there's two arrows on the screen. In the search bar, you can see that there's that shopping bag icon that will send all records from the search results to the record set. But if you want to send a selection of records to a record set, you can select them, check the box to select them, and then use that Add to Record Set button at the bottom. Within the bibliographic, item records, and patron records as well, you can find Add to a new record set or Add to an existing record set under the Actions drop-down menu. There's also multiple ways within record sets that you can add items to the record set. So you can scan barcodes, you can use the Find tool by pressing that Find tool button, and you can also upload a file. So under that lower Actions drop-down menu that's just above the table, you can see that there's an arrow pointing to Add from File. So in the past, this was only for the barcodes of item records, but now this has also been added to bibliographic records. So you can use a file that contains ISBNs for bibliographic records. So this could be useful for staff that have selection duties, and they could use the diversity audit tool to identify some diverse titles for a display, for example, and you'd be able to use a file that you download from the diversity audit tool to upload the ISBNs to create a record set. And if you have other ways of getting a list of record sets, maybe from a vendor's website or something like that, you'd be able to do that as well. Or someone was filtering a report in, say, in Excel that they had used to create a waiting list report from Simply Reports, and they deleted something from that file, then you could potentially create a record set by uploading that file. And Nancy commented that she uses that for uploading files of records for item record cleanup. And there is another option within record sets. You can convert the bibliographic record sets to item record sets and vice versa. So this is under that Actions drop-down menu on the top. You can see that there's the option to create the bibliographic record set from the item record set. So I've personally found this useful when I'm making a variety of different record sets for different reasons, like finding the award books using bibliographic records to create record sets, and then you may want to convert it to the item record set to just find your items for a display. So this could also be useful if you're working with staff for a weeding report, if they're trying to weed multiple copies of titles that aren't circulating well. You could do a count report in Simply Reports based on the bibliographic record number and have that ISBN in there to create a bibliographic record set, and then convert that record set to an item record set to just identify your item records. Are there any other questions about record sets? Are there any other questions about record sets? Nancy, is there something specific that you wanted me to repeat? Item count reports. So I was suggesting that If you are trying to identify titles to read in Simply Reports, one option for looking for multiple copies, and we have a description of this on the CCS website, is to create an item count report using the bibliographic record um, control number. And this will tell you the amount of items that are linked to that bibliographic record control number, and you can use a filter to just select your library's items. So it'll help you find multiple copies. So I'm going to switch back um, to Leap 1 second, and I will do one more demonstration that I think is useful to demonstrate. 1 second. Okay, so one thing that's staff commented on recently that they found really useful was a demonstration on searching with power searches so that you can save your filters. So I do want to emphasize this. And I think this could be potentially good if you want a quick way to find items that need to be denewed without going to Simply Reports. So I'm going to do a basic search first. I'm going to start with item record and we'll add filters. So I'm signed in as Round Lake, so I'm going to choose the assigned branch of Round Lake. And I'm going to identify new Blu-rays. Let's see, 1 second. So I'm going to select the material type. Oh, there it is, material type at the bottom. That's the material type from the item record. Type of material is from the bibliographic record. And I'm going to just search for Blu-ray New and press apply. So in order to find some new items, it could be useful to search for that first available date. And I will select January since this was updated in May. So I'm looking for anything that's still new that has a first available date of January 1st to January 31st. And this is where searching for using a power search to search for new items is useful. So I'm going to switch from basic search to power search. And you can see here that it's changed my filters to the common command language for power search. So here's the assigned branch and material type, and it's got the first available date here. And you can just press save to save those filters. As a power search. So this is only visible to you using your username. So unlike the SQL queries that everyone can see, if you wanted to share a power search with someone, you'd have to just copy the power search text and send it to them, and they can also save it as they want. So I'm going to add this to my a record set by clicking on the record set icon. And I've added a name, and you can also change the owner to your library if you want. And now I'll run that search, and it could not perform the operation. Maybe I will change the date. Well, I will switch to a different saved search I made and try this one for Algonquin and see if that runs it. Still not performing the operation. It was working earlier. So I'll have to report that. But there we go. Using Mount Prospect works today. All right. So it looks like we've got a number of records that are new at MedProspect. This one is DVD new though, so that's fine. But a lot of them are already checked out and awaiting um, pickup. But I can just from here just briefly demonstrate. You'd be able to then use bulk change to denew them, and you'd be able to look for a template if you have one set up. If you don't, you can create a template for the bulk change. So let's see. I'm just going to briefly change the DVD from DVD new to DVD, or the material type from DVD new to DVD. So you may also need to change any loan periods or fine codes. So I'll change the fine code from new to DVD. If you don't have a template for denewing it, you can press Save as Template to save that template. And press Create. And then update items to denew them. And I'll press Continue. So I'll press refresh so that you can see that that change has taken effect, and DVD new now says DVD. If you want to take a look at that report, you can click on background processing. It used to download, but it is now under item bulk change. So you can see here is the report of the records I just changed. Okay, so are there any questions about what I covered today? We've got a few more minutes left. Okay, sounds like there aren't any questions. If you do think of any questions, feel free to email me. Oh, I do see a question here. Sarah's wondering if we have any information about future updates beyond 7.7. We do not. The only information right now on the product board is for 7.7. One second, I can show that to you and paste a link in the chat. Right, so this is the product roadmap for Innovative. You can see that 7.7 is in progress. This will come out in Q4, so we should be able to update to that sometime in the winter. I don't know exactly when we'll be updating to 7.7. We'll update training first, do QA to make sure it works properly, update our training courses, and then we'll update production after we've verified that there aren't too many bugs that will be a problem for us. So I'm going to paste a link to that product roadmap in the chat so you can see here. We've got some interesting features for technical services coming with 7.7. There's a split screen mark editor. So you can see there's like a little picture to preview it here. There's going to be a show all option at the bottom of record sets. Additional shortcuts or hotkeys are coming to Leap. There's actually going to be an update for Simply Reports. This is one that we requested ourselves in the Idea Exchange, that won the Idea Exchange, is to create record sets in the saved or scheduled reports in Simply Reports. So that will be very useful. They're going to be adding recent search history to the Leap Find tool. The EDI support with ASN will be coming, so it'll be useful for acquisitions. Subfund management will also be coming for acquisitions. There will be that duplicate detection button without saving as well. So we don't have any information on what will be coming in 7.8 yet, but these changes with 7.7 are pretty significant, and they sound like they're good changes that um, many of you are probably interested in seeing. Are there any other questions? All right, so I am going to send you a copy of these slides, a link to our survey to fill out, as well as some information on the label sets settings that were requested. And if you have any questions about Leap, feel free to let me know. I'm going to stop the recording now.